Hi guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. As you might be able to tell, I'm not currently in Manchester anymore. I am currently in Zagreb in Croatia. Why am I in Zagreb? Well, I have a plan. The UK goes into lockdown tomorrow on Thursday, which means no poker in the UK for the foreseeable future, or certainly for England anyway. So I decided to get out of the country and go over to the US. Now, getting over to the US has proven difficult because you cannot go directly from a Schengen zone country. You have to be out of the Schengen zone for 2 weeks before you go. So looking on the map, I had a plan of flying out to Vienna, a cheap flight to Vienna, which is in the Schengen zone, but then getting a bus after a few days to Zagreb in Croatia, which is where I am now. Spending 11 nights here and then going on to Serbia, where I can fly from Serbia, from Belgrade to New York, and then from New York to Tampa. So I have 4 weeks booked in Tampa, starting on the 19th of November. So I'm very excited about that. I can bring you hopefully loads of different hands from there, playing sort of 1, 3, 2, 5 in the Tampa area. But unfortunately, I didn't get to spend a few nights in Vienna. As some of you may know, there was a terrorist attack on Monday evening in Vienna. I was due to fly on Tuesday morning. I was debating on whether or not to go actually with what was going on, but I decided to go. But unfortunately my accommodation and everything got cancelled. So I had to come down to Zagreb early. So I had to get a bus down to Zagreb. Once I'd finally found the bus station, I was getting lost quite a lot in the underground system in Vienna. It was very complicated. So that took a long time. Got a 5-hour bus journey down to Zagreb from Vienna yesterday. So I'm here. Now, luckily for me, there is a casino not too far. I went there yesterday evening, spent around 2 hours there. To be honest, the game was pretty dead. It was a €1-2 game. There was a lot of sort of folding, a lot of walks. A raise would take it down a lot. So a very sort of dry game, but I'm told that the other nights are a little bit more exciting because they have tournaments on other nights. So hopefully that'll be a bit better, but I just went to explore and see what happened. And at least there is a game here for me to play, so it's not all doom and gloom. I'm looking forward to exploring Zagreb. From what I've seen so far, it looks a great city. Apparently the food's really good. I just went down to get some typical Croatian lunch, which was very nice. And yeah, I'm looking to go and put in a good session tonight at the casino. €1, €2 game. I'll let you know how I get on. I'm here for the next 12 or 13 nights or so. I'm in a hotel for now, but I've booked an apartment as of tomorrow evening because obviously I wasn't expecting to be here so early. And yeah, I'll let you know how I get on and I'll show you a little bit of Zagreb while I'm here. Hi guys, so I've now been here in Zagreb for 5 days. And I'm going to go through some hands, go over some hands that I've played here. Before I do, just a quick recap on the sessions I've played between the last vlog and this one coming out. So before I got to Zagreb, so I went over to Leeds Grosvenor to play a couple of sessions there. The restrictions were that the casino finished at 10 p.m. So there were sort of 4 till 10 p.m. sessions in the afternoons. I did okay. I went and played 2 sessions. I won £364 one session and £193 in the second session. I then went to Leeds the night after and played in a home game that I had been sort of helping to organise and run previously. But I was just going as a player this time, and unfortunately I lost at that game, £355. I did then go play a game in Manchester. One of my friends, Alex, runs a home game there. and it was a good night. I did very well. I won £1,340 in that game. And then that brings me to Zagreb. So the first session I played in Zagreb, I won £54. I'm converting the sessions in from euros to pounds, so that was actually €60, but I've converted it. So the results will stay in the same currency. It just makes it easier to keep track of, etc. So let's get into some hands then that I've played so far since I've been here in Zagreb. Okay, so unfortunately, the casino here in Zagreb, it's very difficult for me to film any hands, so I'll be showing the hands through this Share My Pair app to make it easy for you to follow. So the first hand then that we'll get into, I look down at 6, 7 of spades under the gun. I raise to €7, and the hijack 3-bets me, but only very small, to 17. We're quite deep here, so I defend, and we go heads up to a flop. The flop comes Queen 7-3 with 2 clubs and 1 heart. I check, and the hijack c-bets for €20. I make a fairly standard call here, I think, heads up with middle pair. So we go to a €77 turn, which is the queen, another queen, so it pairs the queen, so it's Queen 7-3 now, still with 2 clubs. I check, and the hijack moves all in for €106. Now, at this stage, it's very difficult to range my opponent. He could have potentially ace-queen, but to overbet here, like 1.3x pot, I can't really see him doing that with like ace-queen. Surely he wants me to call. If he's got overpairs, obviously 3-bet pre-flop, so he could have aces or kings, then surely he would want me to continue in the hand and bet smaller, or perhaps he'd be scared that I've hit the queen. So it seems very strange that he goes for the overbet. So I actually decide to make the call with the 6-7. The river is the 5 of diamonds, so pretty much a brick. And the villain shows down Jack 10 of hearts. So we win that pot against Jack 10 of hearts. He obviously took off and was bluffing. Okay, so on to the next hand then. We look down under the gun +1 at pocket 10s. We raise to £7 and the hijack calls. The flop is 3-4-5 rainbow. Now I decided to check this one over, just for balance really. I'm going to want to check with a lot of different hands here on this board. Probably checking my whole range, and the hijack bets €10. So we make the call. The turn is a brilliant offsuit 10. So we check it over again, and the hijack actually overbets. He bets 40. So no choice here but to call. He could flop to straight. He could have us beat here occasionally. So we make the call. The river is an offsuit queen. So we check it over, and the hijack bets 20 now. So when he sizes way down and only bets 20, I think we've probably got the best hand here. He's going to want to size up a lot with his straights and get the most value. So we raise to 95, but unfortunately the hijack folds. Okay, so this one's quite a big hand here. We look down at Jack 9 of hearts in my small blind. Falls to the button, who opens to 7. We decide to 3-bet this hand and make it 30. We don't really want to flat call and bring the big blind in behind, play multi-way out of position. We'd rather try and take the pot down now. Or if we get called, we've got a lot of playability post-flop. So we make it 30. The big blind does fold and the button calls. So we go heads up to a flop of 8, 9, 10 with 2 diamonds and a spade. Very similar to the last flop. We're going to want to check our whole range here really on this board. So we decide to check it over to the button, who bets 17. We make a fairly standard call, I think, with middle pair and up and down. The turn card is a bad one. It actually pairs the 10. We check it over, and the button bets 75. Now, I think this is where we make a mistake. I mean, he could have flushes. He could potentially have a full house already or a straight. So I think this is a very clear fold. But I just thought that if I call, this player does have a lot of bluffs in his range. He's bluffed a lot previously in the session. And and also it could potentially get tricky on the river, which does actually happen. So we make the call, and the river is an offsuit 6. So we check again, and the button bets 180. Now I'm fairly confident at this point that the button has got a flush, or potentially a straight. It could well have Queen Jack, maybe a 7, but more likely he's got a couple of diamonds in his hand and made a flush. So our hand's no good here. We decide not to fold, however. We decide to turn this hand into a bluff, and we shove for 650 euros effective. And we do actually get a tank out of the button. He tanks for a good 10-15 seconds, but he does ultimately call. He does actually tank call with 10-8 of clubs. So I guess if he did have a flush, he potentially would fold. Certainly if it's not the nut flush. So I don't mind a play too much. I prefer to have a hand like 8-9 and sort of double block the full house, or at least have a diamond in my hand. I don't think it's the best candidate to pick to bluff with, but we went for it anyway, and we lost a big one. So in this next hand, we look down at 9-10 of hearts. In the hijack, the low jack, who is the same opponent from the last hand, raises to 7. We decide not to get tricky and just to call here, and the cutoff calls as well. So 3 ways to a flop, which is King 9-9 with 2 clubs. The low jack C bets 8. Obviously with our image from the last hand, we're going to want to raise here with our value. So we put a large raise into 30. The cutoff folds and the low jack continues with a call. The turn is a brick. It's the 2 of diamonds. The low jack checks, and I actually opt to overbet here, which I'm going to want to do with a lot of my sort of combo draws and club draws. So I bet 90, and the low jack calls. The river is not a good one, however. It's the 5 of clubs, but when the low jack checks it over to me, I try and go for a little bit of value again and bet 60 euros. Unfortunately, we get some bad news. The low jack raises all in for our effective stack, which is 450 euros total. So we think about it for a while, but ultimately I think we have to fold, and that's what we do. So we make the discipline fold there, and I'm guessing he's got a flush or potentially a better 9 or maybe king's full. So as you can probably tell, the first proper session in Zagreb went pretty terribly. Converted over to pounds, we actually lost 1,331, which is an awful lot to lose in a 1-2 euro game. A couple of other hands that I didn't actually make notes of, but there was a hand where I got aces all in pre-flop against kings very early on in the session for only about 150 euros. Of course, there was a king high flop, so we lost that one. And another hand in quite a large 3-bet pot with pocket jacks, where the board was 5-5, 5-6, and the river was unfortunately a queen, and I check called the river, and the opponent had king queen, so he rivered me in that one. And that just sort of summed up the session really. A lot of hands didn't go our way, so yeah, we lost 1,331 in pounds, so not a good start. Okay, so into our second vlogged session then, our second full session in Zagreb. The first hand of note, we look down at pocket 6s, under the gun +1. Under the gun raises to £7. We make the call, and the big blind also calls, so 3 ways to a flop of 10-6 deuce rainbow, so a very good flop for 6s. We flop middle set. The big blind checks, the under the gun bets 14. Now, I don't think we can really raise here with middle set. We don't really have many draws to raise with on 10-6 deuce, a very dry flop. So we just continue through a call, and we get some good news. The big blind actually check raises to 45 euros. So that's brilliant news for us with middle set. We've pretty much got the nuts here. I think the big blind's going to 3-bet with pocket 10s pre-flop. So here's hoping he's got pocket 2s. Under the gun makes a fold, and we continue again through a call to keep his range wide, keep potentially some of his bluffs in if he's got some sort of gut shot bluffs, etc. The turn is an offsuit 5, which I think is a very good card. Only really 3-4 gets there. I think it's quite unlikely he's check raising with that. So we get more good news when the big blind continues through a €90 bet. We decide to make the call. He's got about €260 left, so I think we can call here, and if he's got pocket twos, he's going to get it all in anyway, regardless of the river. And if he does have some sort of straight draw, he's probably going to put it in at the end as a bluff anyway. So the best way to continue here, I think, is through a call. The river is an offsuit jack, and after about 40 seconds of thinking, the big blind moves all in. We, of course, snap call, and the big blind mucks his hand. He later says he had 7-9 of diamonds, which I believe was a gut shot with a backdoor flush draw, and he continued and bluffed off. So we got lucky there, a nice flop, and we win that one. Okay, so the next key hand of note then from the second session, we look down at Ace King with the King of Hearts in the small blind. There's one limp, and the button raises to £12. Now, I've 3-bet this button quite a few times and shown random cards, like I 3-bet him with Ace-4 suited and showed the 4. I 3-bet him with pocket 9s and I showed 1-9. So I think he thinks I'm getting after him a little bit. So there's a little bit of a few levels going on there. So I 3-bet very large. I make it 53 out of the small blind, and the limper folds and he continues, does the button through a call. So heads up to a flop. We get a very good flop of Ace-6 deuce with 2 hearts. So we've got top pair, top kicker, and a backdoor nut flush draw. We c-bet small, want to keep him in with a lot of his range, and he calls a €40 bet. The turn is now the 3 of hearts. We were going to go very large here on a brick. When the 3 of hearts comes in, I still feel like we can bet fairly big because we've got the king. I don't expect him to have too many flushes in 3-bet pot. We're going to target a large portion of his range, should be like Ace-10, Ace-Jack type holdings. So we bet 120 with the levels between us that are going on as well. I fully expect him to never be folding an ace here, and he makes the call. And the river is another 6, so it pairs a 6. So the final board, Ace-6 deuce 3-6 with 3 hearts. With the King of Hearts, we decide to go for it. We bet £335, which is a very large bet in this game, and the button tanks for a long time before ultimately calling. So we get the good news there. We win. He mucks his hand. It later transpires that he actually called me with King High, so I'm not too sure what King High he had. Maybe like a King Queen type hand with the Queen of Hearts to continue on the turn, and then just didn't believe me. I think going large on the river as well, a lot of people potentially at this level would only go that big with maybe a flush or a 6. So to go so large with just an ace, maybe he thinks I don't have many 6s or flushes, so he makes the calls. So that worked out really well for us, and we win a big pot. So the second full session in Zagreb went an awful lot better than the first. We won quite a bit. When you convert what I won into pounds, it was £593 profit. So we are recovering on the trip. Okay, so into the final session of the trip then for this vlog. We look down in the cutoff at Jack-9 of spades. We raise to £7. The button 3-bets to 20, and we make the call. The flop comes Jack-7-4 with 2 diamonds and 1 heart. We check it over to the button, who c-bets 25, and we make a standard call. The turn is a very good one. It's the 9 of clubs. We check it over again, and the button fires for 60. Now, we've got a couple of options here. We could raise now. I just think that looks really strong when thinking what to do. So we opt to call with the plan of leading a lot of rivers, make it look like I've potentially missed my flush draw, front door diamond draw. So we make the call here. And the turn's an interesting one. It's a 10 of hearts, so it makes any 8 a straight. But I don't expect either of us to have many 8s really in our range, given the action. So I still go with my original plan, and I polarise a little bit, making it 130 euros. So I bet 130 into just over 200. And the button thinks for a long time before ultimately finding the fold, unfortunately. So we don't quite get the value there, potentially a bad river, and the button gets away. The next hand of this session then, we have queens in the low jack. Under the gun raises to £7. We decide to 3-bet to 20. And we actually get a 4-bet from the high jack to 65. The under the gun folds, and we decide to make the call. The flop comes jack 5-4 with 2 spades. We do actually have the queen of spades in our hand. We check, and the hijack checks it back. The turn is the 6 of diamonds. So we put in a little equity protection bet here, really targeting sort of ace king. So we can get called by ace king, but we're also making them pay to either hit an ace or a king, because that's probably what I'm figuring he's holding. And if he's got an overpair, he could potentially raise here. And if we do get raised, our plan is to fold. But the good news is the hijack folds, so we win the pot. On to the next hand, and a hand I think I screwed up a little bit here. I don't think I played this hand very well at all. So we open 8-9 of spades under the gun. The cutoff and the button both make the call. The flop comes 10-4-5 with 2 spades, so we flop the flush draw. And I think really we should be betting here. We've got an awful lot of good barrel opportunities. Any sort of 6, any 7, any jack, any queen gives us sort of more outs in terms of straight draws. Obviously a spade gives us a flush, an 8 or a 9 would give us a pair. And also an ace or a king could come, and we could easily represent a hand like ace king if an ace or a king came. So we messed up, we checked. We were thinking about potentially check raising, but when the cutoff bets 20 euros into just 24, we decide just to call and play quite passively. The turn is the 3 of diamonds. We check again, and the cutoff bets 50. At this point, we should even consider folding really for the price that we're getting out of position. But we don't like folding flush draws. I didn't really want to call, and I thought there might be a little bit of fold equity, so I decided to put in a raise to 140. Again, I really don't like this raise. I don't think we're going to play our overpairs this way, checking twice and then raising turn. It just doesn't make much sense, so I really hate my play here. And the cutoff does make the call. The river is another 10, and we sort of give up really. We actually bet 60 euros. Now the reason for this bet is to target any other spades that have missed, like if he's got a nut flush draw that's ended up missing everything, or maybe a king high flush draw like king jack of spades for example. We're trying to get these hands to fold out because obviously we lose to them, so we put a very cheap bet in, a 6-pot bet, but we do get called and we lose against ace 10, so top pair top kicker that rivers trips. So the final hand then that we'll go over, we get dealt pocket 4s in the big blind. Under the gun, who is absolutely steaming at this point, he's lost an awful lot of pots and he doesn't seem to be able to win a hand, opens to 7. The under the gun 1 makes the call. The cutoff actually 3-bets to 23 of quite a shortish stack. Now I look round and I think a case could be made for folding because the cutoff's only got about 93 euros in total. But looking round, it looks as if under the gun 1 are both going to call, and we're very deep with these players, so we're almost getting a good price pre-flop. I'm just hoping that no one decides to 4-bet, so we decide to call. Under the gun surprisingly actually folds and gets out of the way, but the under the gun 1 makes the call. So we go 3 ways to a flop, a magical flop of jack 9-4 with 2 diamonds. I check, and under the gun 1 checks. The cutoff moves all in for 70. So we put a bit of Hollywood on here. We think for a while and make the call. And to our surprise, actually, the low jack also calls. So we go 3 ways again, heads up for a non-existent side pot to the 5 of diamonds. So a terrible turn here. The flush draw comes in, so I don't think there's any value in betting really. We decide to check it over, and the low jack does bet, but he only bets 70, which is very small. Sorry, the under the gun 1 or low jack is the same position actually in this hand. So we decide to make the call for 70, and the river is beautiful. It pairs the jack, but it's the jack of diamonds, so there are now 4 diamonds on the board. A board of jack, 9, 4, 5, jack. We decide to rip it all in for €346, and the low jack goes well into the tank before ultimately making the call. So we win a big pot here. He shows ace 6 of diamonds, so he actually did turn the nut flush, and couldn't lay it down on the river. So we win a big one with pocket 4s. So as you can probably tell, another very good session there. We actually win when converted into pounds, 709, meaning since the last vlog that you watched where I got absolutely tortured at PLO in London, we've made a profit of £1,567. So I'm going to be in Zagreb now for another just over a week, maybe nine nights left I think I've got here before I move on to Belgrade and then fly to the US. So I'm going to try and bring a couple of vlogs every week from now. So yeah, stay with me guys, enjoy the journey. I'll let you know how I get on in the rest of the sessions here in Zagreb. And yeah, please hit the subscribe button, give me a like, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.